if you're a homeowner and there's items that you need to get done on your home, like dry rot, paint, gutters, little things like that, you want to do those little items before they become big items. But we're gonna go over the next topic, and I'm gonna let Charles share his screen. He has some stuff he want to talk to you guys about regarding your home. If you're a homeowner or you're planning on buying a home, selling a home, anything like that, you guys are gonna need to pay attention to this, okay?
There's a lot of things that people just have no idea about when it comes to their home. You just live in your home, everything works, you're good, and then you go to sell it, and all of a sudden, some ridiculous home inspector comes and tells you all these things that are wrong with your house, and then all of a sudden, you have to spend thousands of dollars to try to make these repairs. So that's why I love to stress the idea that you need to really make sure you're taking care of all your deferred maintenance, and you're actually getting these inspections and looking into these things, not just because you're going to sell your house, not just because you're looking to buy a house, but you're doing it because you're just making sure that your house is actually functioning the way it's supposed to. Nothing, just like yourself, is going to function properly forever with no maintenance.
Last week we spoke a little bit about roofs, so maybe you could do a refresher.
The biggest thing is, I think we were talking about tile roofs specifically. Composition shingle roofs, they don't last as long, but tile roofs, they last much longer, but they require so much more maintenance, right? Biggest thing is, again, cleaning your valleys, cleaning your gutters, all those things with either type of roof. One of the things that's the most important is also making sure anything that penetrates your roof, there's going to be a rubber seal, or there's going to be some other kind of flashing on that, and that has to be maintenance. You can't just leave that alone and never touch it. It has to be worked on. It has to be maintenance. And perfect example, storm collars and boots when they come through the roof. This one just had sealant on it. And this is a prime example of an area that's going to allow for water intrusion. This is going to actively let water into your attic structure without putting any kind of additional sealant. But the best thing to do with this is put on a storm collar. It's just a rubber $5 part that can save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. It's as simple as that.
Can you share what a collar does?
Yeah, so basically the collar slips around the pipe, and then it goes over the top of that flashing. And so that gap that you can see right in this area right here, that gap that's going to allow water into it, because this is what's called a plumbing vent stack. You ever turn over a gallon of milk or water and it just kind of glugs out and it just splashes all over the place? With your piping, it's the same situation. If you're going to flush water down your drain and you don't have an open vent to allow that air to come in the same way that it's going down, it's going to glug and it's going to flow improperly, right? Your every plumbing fixture is going to have some kind of vent that's vented to the exterior that's going to allow that air to be drawn in while the water or waste or whatever it is flushed down that drain pipe. And so these pipes it's normal for these pipes to be open. If water gets in the pipe, it's not a problem because it's all going down into the drain system anyway. And it's such a small amount, it doesn't matter that much, right? But the flashing that's around it, that's where that pipe comes through the roof. That's what's supposed to seal it and to prevent the water from coming in. So the problem is that if that seal is not intact, then you're going to have water dripping into your roof every single time it rains. And if you look at it, you can kind of see where the sealant used to be.
There's like an intrusion right there.
So this area, this is about 1/4 of an inch, and that's every time water's just dripping down. You can imagine water just kind of dripping down your windshield and all that. It's just coming in there all the time, right? And again, $5 part that you can buy from Home Depot. And if you're inclined to get up on your roof, you can put one of these on. This is the thing. A lot of people think that they have to hire somebody to do maintenance. You don't have to. If you feel good about getting up on your roof and you don't think you're gonna fall off and all that. I mean, I never encourage people to do things they don't feel safe with, but there's a lot of things even on the ground that you can do by just sealing up things, getting exterior caulking and sealing up some of your joints on your wood members, things like that, keeping everything painted when the paint starts to fade. All those things that you can do, even if you don't feel good about getting up on the roof, you can do those small maintenance things that are gonna make that piece of wood last longer. That's gonna prevent water from coming in. Your gutters, big thing on your gutters is what people don't understand is they can get to that later, right? Your gutters will constantly overflowing, but all that water constantly touching your overhangs, your wood members, that's going to eventually rot that wood out. You never want to have water in constant contact with exposed wood. It's going to damage it eventually. So, and some people really don't feel safe about ladders. I mean, I've done so many inspections and then, actually talking to people, you get people that are just really inclined to do a lot of different things. They're totally fine with it, don't have any issues with it. And other people just literally have no idea even how to even think about getting on a ladder, right? That's the first thing. So those are the people you definitely want to have somebody come in and help you out. And that's great.
All right, man. Continue on with your collar. So that's a good idea. Thanks for sharing that.
Same thing with this. Again, this is going to be on a composition roof. There's only a certain few places that have this, but especially on flashings again. So let me go back to this other picture. So you can see right down here, these nails where they nail this down, you see there's no sealant on those, right? Every single place that there's a hole in your roof, and you got to understand this, okay? The satellite guy comes by and smashes a satellite dish on your roof and puts a bunch of holes on the side of your roof. Yeah. That's a penetration. Every time you put a hole, that roofing material, you have a chance for a leak if it's not sealed properly. You have to understand that. So, keep that in mind. You got to make sure that these people that are coming and doing work on your house, they know what they're doing. And this is with anything. Get a second opinion, get somebody to take a look after. If you really research this person that's doing the work, get an idea that you can trust these people and they're not going to do shoddy work. That's one of the things that we as home inspectors see the most. When we go through houses and we're looking through things, either the homeowner did it and they weren't skilled enough to do it, or they hired somebody to do it and they just did a horrible job, but then the homeowner didn't know because they didn't know what to look for. And us as home inspectors, we're going to go in there and we're going to see these things and then tell you about it, and they're just like, well, that wasn't supposed to be this way. They were supposed to do it right, So it's really unfortunate, but you really want to make sure that when you're hiring somebody to do anything, or anybody's going to be doing anything on your house, really find out what they're doing. Same thing with this. Again, let's talk about the cable guy. They're going to drill holes through your wall to put this cable through. Most of them have pretty well set up guidelines to how they're going to do that. Make sure that they're putting sealant on those penetrations that go through your wall, because it's not as easy for the water to get in on the wall unless it's south facing, but water can still intrude, and you also have little insects and things like that can get into these openings. So the wall was sealed in the first place for a reason, right? So make sure that anything that goes through the roof, the walls, any of that is all sealed up properly, and it's going to keep pests and also water out. So this was a perfect example of that. This is just a portion of the roof. These nails were totally fine to be put there. It's just that they put sealant on them, and over time the sealant wore away, and then that's a perfect place. Again, it's such a small hole, but the water's going to keep seeping into that small hole, and then eventually what's going to happen is it's not going to keep leaking in. It's going to rot the wood. That's really what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden you got a big rotted section of wood, and you got to rip a bunch of shingles off your house and do all these crazy repairs over something, again, small. A little tube of sealant, $3-4. You go up there, every 5 years or so, reseal all these little areas that have problems and prevent that kind of stuff from happening. Same thing with this one, these nail holes right here. There should never be any exposed nails on your roof. Next thing I'm going to talk about is air conditioning and heating systems.
Ooh, is that a vent? A filter?
This is an air filter, okay? This one's really not that bad. This one's easy to get to. It's bad, it's nasty, but it's easy to get to, right? When I say it's not that bad, I mean the access. So it's got a little knob on it. You open up the closet and pull it out and slide it out, put a new one in, you're all good. Some of them you got to get up on a ladder, climb up in the ceiling and change it all out and do all that stuff. I know it can be a pain in the butt, but this really does put stress on your ventilation system, on your air handler. It really does put stress on the motor, and this is going to cause further problems to happen, right? So if you just pay somebody to come in and do the maintenance on your air conditioning and heating system, typically you can add in this kind of thing too if you really just don't want to deal with it. This is the kind of thing that they'll do for you and include it in their service. They're usually about maybe $150 a year, or every time you have them come out, they'll charge you $150. They'll check multiple different things to make sure that your unit's operating properly, that it's going to be in good operating condition, so that you're not going to be stuck in the middle of the winter with a heater that doesn't work, or stuck in the middle of the summer with an air conditioning that doesn't work. And they'll check out these kind of things here too.
I normally do like a yearly plan with my HVAC guys because it's cheaper that way, and it's just peace of mind for me. Every time whenever they come out, they're really familiar with my system. They know what's going on. They work on it. And the last time, I haven't replaced one of my filters like this for a while. I don't know what happened, and I just forgot because I'm pretty good about it. But it was filthy, and I noticed that my air conditioning wasn't as efficient as normal. And when they came out, the guy swapped it out, and man, it went back to normal. I'm like, what the heck? A small little thing like this.
Well, so here's the other thing too with these things. So what happens is that when these get really nasty like this one here, and the air is actually pulling on it, it's actually going to like deform this and pull it into the opening so much that it deforms it and actually allows unfiltered air to pass by the sides of it. And then what ends up happening is that those little small orifices in your evaporator, and then even into your heat exchanger, that stuff gets in there, and especially your evaporator, and it clogs it up, and then it prevents the air from flowing as much. And then later on, especially, don't ever run your system without a filter. Be like, I'll go to the store and get it later, and then you forget, and it's a month later, right? There's small, it's almost like the front of a radiator in your vehicle, right? There's these little small openings in your evaporator Your evaporator is what's connected to your air conditioning system. And so the air passes through that, right? If that's clogged over time, the air is going to clog that. Again, this is part of a good service that can be done on your system, that the air isn't going to flow as well, even if you had a filter or not, right? And then it's going to diminish the amount of airflow that your system's going to have. Again, anytime you do this, it's going to cause some kind of detrimental effect. That's why you want to make sure you keep up on this. There's so many things that have a secondary and then following up effect if you don't take care of them. So this is, again, something very simple to do, very cheap. They're about, $5-10, and you do it every, it just depends on how often you use it, but every 30, 45 days and, every 60 days, whatever it is, but it's going to save you so much money in the end. These systems are very expensive, tens of thousands of dollars to replace these, and you don't want to get caught, doing these kind of things and damaging them and shortening their lifespan.
Small little things creating huge effects.
So one of the other things that I keep talking about often is, again, same thing. This is part of the evaporator. This is connected to your air conditioning system. So this is what's called a condensate line. So if you're ever outside your house and you see there's this plastic pipe or metal pipe that's just constantly dripping all the time, it's a little elbow on it, that's what's called the condensate line. When your air conditioning is running, and sometimes heaters that are high efficiency, you're going to have moisture dripping out of that line on a regular basis, especially during the summer months when you have your air conditioning running. What happens is over time, again, if you don't have regular service on these systems, this line's going to get clogged up, and then eventually it's going to get blocked. And then the problem is that in this particular case, this is a closet mounted or garage mounted unit, and it's got this little red cap over the secondary. Usually on an attic mounted unit, it's a requirement to have a primary and a secondary. The primary is connected down near the bottom. You'll see that one always dripping out. The secondary is connected up above a window or somewhere high that drips. And if it ever drips, then you're just like, why is there water dripping out of my roof? You know what I mean? Like that, people start to think that's the secondary. But in garage mounted and closet mounted units in older homes that are built in the 80s, maybe even in the 90s, some of these homes have their furnace in the garage or in a closet inside their home. So what happens is if this primary clogs, there's not really anywhere for this condensation to go other than there's a pan inside of this evaporator. It fills up over the pan and then leaks out. And then wherever this thing's sitting, then you got moisture damage, right? So one of the other things that I always recommend is if there's nothing connected to that secondary, even though it's not required, to install something. This is called a safety switch. Basically what this is this connects to that same area, and it has a float in it. And so the way it works is if that primary is clogged and there's nothing flowing out of it, then it's going to start filling into this orifice where the safety switch is, and then there's a float in there, and it lifts up that float. And if it gets to a certain part, it shuts the unit off and it prevents it from continuing to run. So again, then you call your air conditioning heating person, have them come out, and then they take care of it for you, and then, solves the problem. But this is going to save you from water damage, and it's cost about $20. Again, very, very cheap. If you need to have it installed, the air conditioning technician could probably put it in for maybe a couple $100. It's just really cheap insurance when you think about the things that could happen. Always so many maintenance items that are neglected. That's really, I think, probably one of the biggest parts of my job is finding things that people neglected and finding the reasons why.
That's really the cause of it, right? That's really what it is.
It is, but it's just things that overtime maintenance that hasn't been done, and things that just end up wearing down, or people going in and doing just really bad installations, shoddy work. That's the kind of things that that's like, I'd say 80% of what we find when we're doing our inspections, honestly.
Yeah, okay. But I think I'm going to close it off here. Did you want to add before I close it out, Charles? Anything?
Just same thing that I mentioned before, how important it is to have great representation in these transactions. You definitely need to make sure that you have the right people in your corner. Just like Chia mentioned, first-time home buyers have no idea about a lot of this. Great realtor's job to educate them on all of that and get them the right people to help them with their transaction.
Find somebody in your area that you want to use that has the heart of a teacher, meaning they're willing to teach all these things with you. They're passionate about teaching it to you, so that way you could have an informed decision about your purchase. That's what I would recommend. And of course, if you guys are buying a new build or old build, get a home inspector, because you never know, like what Charles was showing us earlier, even if it's new, they miss a lot of basic stuff. It would suck for you to realize it the day of moving in, and then now you don't even get to enjoy the moment. You have to think about other things to do with the house. And I think that's it. Thank you for all the comments and engagements. We always have fun with you guys. But until next time, we will see you guys in the next live show. Peace out now, Chichi fams.